Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. She is loved by many because of her ability to stand up for what's right, and in today's video, we'll be taking a look at her best moments. With that being said, let's dive right in. Number 1. On many occasions, it seems as if the FBI is unable to explain and clarify why charges were applied to certain perpetrators. Here we have an instance in which AOC called out the FBI for seemingly charging an offender with being a part of a foreign organization just because the offender was Muslim.
In Pittsburgh of Jewish people, those were only designated and charged as hate crimes, not domestic terrorist incidents.
You're not going to find an actual charge of domestic terrorism out there. If you look at Title 18, right? If you're looking for...
Well, it says here that, but at the San Bernardino shooting or the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, they were designated and charged as domestic terrorist incidents.
They were.
As she gets into the details, the FBI representative is clearly suggesting to back his original statement that the fact that the perpetrator was Muslim had nothing to do with his charge. However, as AOC keeps pushing this point, the representative keeps struggling to maintain his composure.
They were charged, I'd have to go back and look, they were charged likely with, if there was a connection to a foreign terrorist organization, it would likely fall under 18 U.S.C. 23 A or B.
So because the perpetrator was Muslim, doesn't it seem that because the perpetrator is Muslim,
that's not correct. That has nothing
that
to do,
the designation would say it's a foreign organization?
That's not correct. That is not correct.
Number 2. Climate change is a real issue that is affecting the entire world. However, many parts of the United States are choosing to ignore this issue and instead fund initiatives that are harming the environment. In this clip, you'll see AOC speak out about the issues that arose in New York because of the lack of clean air.
An elitist issue. This is a quality of life issue. You want to tell people that their concern and their desire for clean air and clean water is elitist? Tell that to the kids in the South Bronx, which are suffering from the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country. Tell that to the families in Flint, whose kids have their blood is ascending in lead levels. Their brains are damaged for the rest of their lives. Call them elitist. You're telling them that those kids...
As she mentioned, these issues are real and are the reason why many young New Yorkers are showing early signs of asthma. Yet the government is putting their money towards oil companies when instead they should be focusing on the issue that is actually damaging the livelihood of their own citizens.
Never come back. And we're here and people are more concerned about helping oil companies than helping their own families? I don't think so. I don't think so. This is about our lives. This is about American lives, and it should not be partisan. Science should not be partisan. We are facing a national crisis, and if we do not ascend to that crisis, if we do not ascend to the levels in which we were threatened.
Number 3. Here we have AOC's first ever House floor speech, in which she tells an anecdote to prove and illustrate the problems that the United States has. Even in her first speech, you can see and tell that she is determined to do her best to solve the problems that are flooding New York.
Constituents Yahi Obed. Mr. Obed was born in Yemen and came to the United States when he was 8 years old. His childhood dream was to become a pilot, and he knew and felt that in the United States all things are possible, and his dream could come true. Mr. Obed's dream did come true. He's been a federal employee for 14 years, has 2 children, and a mortgage for his home in the Morris Park neighborhood of the Bronx.
Through the entirety of her speech, she makes excellent and well-presented points that make her seem knowledgeable in the field that she's in. Even in her first House floor speech, she showed the people of New York that she was here to cause positive change.
He studied hard, got his pilot's license, and is now an air traffic controller supervisor at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City. I spoke with Mr. Obed today over the phone. He and air traffic controllers like him across the country missed their first paycheck this past week. He was telling me about how stressful his job is. Every single day, air traffic controllers have thousands of people's lives in their hands. With weather changes, flight delays, staffing complexity.
Number 4. In this clip, we have AOC clearly throwing shade at Trump and how he got elected. While doing this, she brings out to the light that there should be laws that prevent a presidential candidate from funding his or her campaign off of oil or big pharma, and then when elected, having a bias in writing laws in their favor.
Okay, great. So, green light for hush money. I can do all sorts of terrible things. It's totally legal right now for me to pay people off. And that is considered speech. That money is considered speech. So I use my special interest dark money funded campaign to pay off folks that I need to pay off and get elected. So now I'm elected, now I'm in. I've got the power to draft, lobby, and shape the laws that govern the United States of America. Fabulous. Now, is there any hard limit that
You can tell that she is very clearly talking about the Trump administration and showing us that there are quite literally loopholes that allow it. So certain industries get a bias if they choose to fund a certain candidate or administration.
that I have, perhaps Mrs. Hobart Flynn, is there any hard limit that I have in terms of what legislation I'm allowed to touch? Are there any limits on the laws that I can write or influence, especially if I'm based on the special interest funds that I accepted to finance my campaign and get me elected in the first place?
There's no limits.
So there's none. So I can be totally funded by oil and gas. I can be totally funded by Big Pharma, come in, write Big Pharma laws, and there's no limits to that whatsoever.
Number 5. Here we have AOC asking the CEO of Facebook about a recent scandal that happened on the platform. The point that AOC is trying to get across is that politicians have the ability to lie via Facebook advertisements and, in theory, get away with it because Facebook doesn't directly fact-check these advertisements.
If anyone, including a politician, is saying things that that is calling for violence or could risk imminent physical harm or voter or census suppression when we roll out the census suppression policy, we will take that content down.
So you will, there is some threshold where you will fact check political advertisements. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, Congresswoman, yes, for specific things like that, where there's imminent risk of harm.
Could I run ads targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New?
As you can see, there is a very big problem that can arise from not fact-checking political advertisements. By not doing this, in a way, politicians have the ability to promote lies using the Facebook platform.
Would I be able to run advertisements on Facebook targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal? I mean, if you're not fact-checking political advertisements, I'm just trying to understand the bounds here. What's fair game?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
You don't know if I'll be able to do that.
I think probably.
Do you see a potential problem here with a complete lack of fact-checking on political advertisements?
Well, Congresswoman, I think lying is bad, and I think if you were to run an ad that had a lie, that would be bad. That's different from it being,
Anyway, that brings us to the end of our video. Please like and subscribe for more content just like this sent straight to your inbox. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.